Man, I was caught off guard there. I was like
You
dead
never know
air,
what
waiting
you
for
get.
something to happen.
That's right.
But
You never know what you're going to get around here.
that's right. Hey, we know we're at episode 149. Welcome back.
149.
150 next week with, I believe, our every 50 episode Daniel
Yeah,
Disney will be back next
King.
week.
The king is back.
That's right. And I think actually what we're going to talk about today is kind of a nice precursor for that, Carson, which, Daniel Disney is kind of the king of LinkedIn, right? We're going to talk about LinkedIn today. And if you think about it, when we first started this show, the social selling for newbies, way back,
Mm,
I guess 3 years
wow.
ago now, I
You're
still
much
had hair.
younger than
I had
me.
a full
Yeah.
full head of hair and everything back then. Um, we were talking about LinkedIn a lot. That was kind of the basis of the whole and the pitch slap and
Oh,
whatever. So we thought we'd revisit kind of LinkedIn. Where has LinkedIn evolved, and is it really a tool for making sales and building pipeline? So we've kind of come full circle, and I think this will set the stage really well for next week with Daniel Disney.
love it. And it indeed is. I was refreshed today. I saw a published case study and a story with a customer that was going to go to the competition that literally started with a LinkedIn connection outreach that I sent on August 26th of 2024 and turned into a discovery call. Customer was going to go with a competitor. We swarmed with some resources, and now we have a published story as a result, and turns into a deal. And it goes back to what I always like to say: relationships beget deals. Um, Relationships can and will start on LinkedIn. The platform is going through a lot of changes, really figuring out the algorithm. And, I think we're already starting to see the pay for play, the prompt to boost posts and, the reduction in impressions. And I think, frankly, too, like there's an overwhelming like presence of AI and people leveraging AI. It sticks out like a sore thumb, in my opinion, but I think it's like flooding the system, and it's almost like diluting some of the things that we've done in years past. Everything's a pendulum, in my opinion, and I think we'll see things continue to fluctuate and swing. But yeah, excited to dive into that today.
On a completely different note, there was an article I read this morning that half the content now on the internet was generated by AI. I
It
mean,
doesn't really surprise me. I mean, I'll get these prompts, like these news prompts, and then I'll click on it and it'll be like, it's just an AI conglomeration of a bunch of different sources. And on the one hand, it's interesting because it is pulling together a lot of different sources as opposed to just reading one. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. What does that do to journalism? I see all these AI videos and this solution called Sora, and I've got people on my LinkedIn feed that are posting videos of themselves talking that are generated by Sora, but they're in the Wild West or something, and it's like looks like them. It's the same technology that people are flooding my YouTube feed with, where I'm a huge Elvis fan, and it's like they're inserting Elvis into Star Trek and into all these other things, and it's like it almost looks real. Like, what's it going to be like in a year? What is our news going to look like? What's our media going to look like in a year?
I mean, what is it? 3 years since ChatGPT really came out in
Yeah,
November,
yeah,
right? So think about the fact that we've essentially then doubled the amount of stuff on the internet, content on the internet in that time frame, and that came from essentially synthetic data, right? That is being created from the engines themselves, and that's just in 3 years. And to your point on LinkedIn, right? And let's kind of take this back to LinkedIn. When we started the show 3 years ago, there was no Chat GPT, interestingly enough. Um, and what we were talking a lot about with LinkedIn, right, was okay, you go to LinkedIn, you connect with people, you comment on their posts, maybe you send them a direct message saying, hey, great to be connected, avoid the pitch slap, right? Rather than connect and pitch, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that was basically a lot of manual work, a lot of, I don't know if it's necessarily a lot of time, but there was an investment for sure that was required to kind of keep that going. And there were certainly results and outcomes to be achieved from that. But let's start and love your take on this, Carson. Let's say that we were starting from scratch and we're walking in and telling somebody, okay, how do you use LinkedIn now versus what we were talking about 3 years ago? Where would you tell them to start? Like, where would you start with LinkedIn, and what would the strategy
So I still get asked to do a lot of presentations inside my organization. And yesterday I presented to hundreds of sellers in another part of the organization at an event. And I was the keynote. And basically, it was exactly that. It's how can you leverage LinkedIn and Sales Navigator right now in a meaningful way. Tom, I think the fundamentals, like in sales, the fundamentals have stayed the same. LinkedIn is still an opportunity to go out there and create meaningful dialogue with contacts, but it looks different because there's a lot of noise. Whereas maybe the noise 2 years ago was a pitch slap that was a generic mention of products and services that nobody cared about. Now it's like this better crafted AI, or we think better crafted AI message that people are getting. But again, I go back to my earlier statement. A lot of the things that people are doing out there are noise and stick out like a sore thumb. Um, I get a lot of comments on LinkedIn posts that I can tell were generated by AI. And so, like, at that, I don't take as a meaningful bid to connect. But when I met with the audience yesterday, it was okay, here's some results and deals that I have generated over the last 11 years that started on LinkedIn. And this is the blueprint to get us there. Tom, I mean, as you recall, when you and I first connected, 4 years ago, it was actually around that exact same topic. It was how do we build out and map out a relationship and, frankly, a strategic deal that started on LinkedIn. And it's still happening today. As I shared at the beginning, it literally just happened where I had a published case study from a relationship that started last year on LinkedIn. And so the messaging is similar, but we've got to get better at how we are showing up in this buyer centric world. I actually recommend, and I still do, I recommended yesterday, the Jolt effect and that methodology around really understanding, like, what is this customer executive that I'm meeting on LinkedIn? What do they want their legacy to be? What's the big problem that they're trying to solve? And why are they married to or not married to? Why are they going down a path of mediocrity or average? Like, why are they what are they afraid to risk to go make a change? Frankly, also, like, understanding the ecosystem super well. You can't win by going toe to toe with your competition. You've got to really understand the problem that they're trying to solve, but you've got to be able to paint a picture of why you would be the right shift, why that risk is worth the squeeze. So when I think about LinkedIn, that is a big part of it, is meaningful connections with new contacts. Everybody, for the most part, that you need to connect with to make your number this year is out on LinkedIn. The flip side is that is also true about your next hiring manager. Somewhere your next hiring manager is out on LinkedIn. And in this day that is rife with layoffs and anxiety about possible layoffs, like, your personal brand matters more now than ever. You have got to create a brand that is powerful, that gets you in contact with people that you want to matter to, and that might be your next hiring manager. Your experiences matter because you've got to de-risk your next hiring manager's decision. And lastly, it's the content piece. I started sharing religiously on social 15 years ago when my publisher of my first book says, you got to use LinkedIn. You got to use these platforms to stay top of mind and create dialogue and create content. And it was like a little snowball then that turned into an avalanche. Now I have over 300,000 followers, and I engage meaningfully with a lot of people every day. But it didn't start out that way. What we need to be doing today is realize your experience matters. And you've got to realize that it isn't self-promotion if it helps other people. I was talking to somebody earlier today on LinkedIn that we actually had on the show a while back. And, they were sharing with me some stuff and, like, genuine connection. And, like, that's the power of LinkedIn, is that you can connect with somebody and make it real that you wouldn't have met otherwise. But your experience matters, and talking about things that are real in your world, like how you won or lost a deal, how you had to be super resilient or resourceful through a horrifying situation. I think the posts that I share that are getting more and more play are the ones that are really vulnerable, really real, and really call out the world that we're in. And that's why LinkedIn is, in my opinion, more important now than ever.
So I hear you saying a couple things. One is it's still all about the relationship. And one thing I want to dig into more is how do you navigate that so that you don't screw up or make that relationship very tainted because you're making stupid AI comments or pitch slapping or whatever, right? Because you can screw up a relationship or kill a relationship before it even starts, right?
Easily.
So I think that the what I'm hearing you say number one is relationships is real relationships, right? Not BS relationships, but real relationships are the reason for dealing with for LinkedIn, okay, as a foundation. I think there's a second piece to this which I want to get into today, which is I think that we can do that at scale more than maybe we could 3 years ago, right? By using some of the tools like Sales Navigator and AI and some of the things that are out here. And obviously, how do you keep that authenticity at scale, right? Of what you're doing. But let's start with the first scenario, which is okay, I want to build a relationship. I don't want to be a relationship killer. I don't want to be pissing people off or being perceived as, the AI guy with a million emojis and everything that I do. What would you say is your battle plan or your playbook for that? Let's say I'm just starting out on LinkedIn or I really haven't done much for a while or whatever. What would you recommend and what would you say stay away from?
As a seller, you've got to know your addressable market. You've got to know, and that's the Moneyball approach that we talk about on this show. You've got to be able to map out, okay, if I'm able to go out and create game-changing relationships, where's it going to have the most impact, right? So when I look at my book of business for the year, I'm looking at, okay, like if I go out and win this security deal here or this Azure deal there, it is going to be a lot more impactful than anything else. So I need to go out and create these relationships that are going to open up, potential paths and doors. But you don't just reach out to one or two or 5 or 10 people because they may completely ghost you. And so I reach out to hundreds. My biggest deal, I reached out to over 500 people in that one organization. I had over 200 first degree connections, and in 2 years took them from doing nothing to a 9-figure deal. Now, these things don't happen overnight. And so the key element is, thinking big and going after these relationships. You need that first domino to fall. So, and nowadays, my gosh, AI makes it so easy. And there's a lot of things that I'm playing with. I still do a lot of prospecting. I love prospecting. I'm one of those sick people. And so like if I'm going out and prospecting, Tom, I will go out and I may pull 100 executives. In fact, I did this week. I found a published case study, thanks to AI. I found a published case study and doing some internet searching, a published case study that one of my big customers did with the competition. I found a case study where we did something that I know that organization wants to do, but they can't do it. Found a case study of us doing that exact thing with another customer. I packed all that stuff into a ChatGPT prompt. I said, write me a subject line that will maximize response open rate. Write me a message body with a 3-sentence hook that will maximize the attention span of a customer executive, and then highlight this that they want, that I know that they want to do, and recognize this innovation that they're doing over here and request a meeting. In seconds flat, that thing was ready to go. I pulled 92 executives that were director and above off of Octopus, my sales navigator and LinkedIn automation tool. You can figure out their email address with a quick internet search, or people use Zoom info or whatever, and that message bombs away. One response. That's all I needed. I'm off to the races.
So was that all the same company or different companies? Or this
Same
within the
company. Reached
same
out to
company?
92 people in the organization, got one
Okay.
reply, and that's all I needed.
So
It's
hey, I want to stop there for a minute because I
yeah,
think this is an important strategy, right? So let's say, we all have account list or account based marketing that we're doing, or, the market that we're going after. Let's just say there's 100 accounts or companies that are in my territory or my market.
yep.
What I think the normal strategy would be, I put normal in quotes,
I don't
would
want to be
be,
normal.
yeah, okay, I know. Well, you have the abnormal strategy, but this is the
Always.
the normal strategy would be go and find an executive who you think is your ideal customer profile at each of those 100 companies, and then try and reach out to that 100 and get a message with that executive, right? That would probably be the normal strategy. But what I'm hearing you say is now go take those 100, find as many people as you can in that organization so let's say there's 100 people in 100 organizations, right? Now that means there's 10,000 people in theory now that is in your market, your TAM, if you want to call it that, your sales TAM, and start reaching out to the 10,000, not to the 100.
In my case, 30,000. So to your point, Tom, like what I've done is gone out and, there's a lot of things that you can do. With LinkedIn, with Sales Navigator, with Octopus, I've pulled contacts that are at organizations in the 400 companies that my team supports. And I can pull, for instance, every contact that's following my organization or everybody of a certain title or whatever. And I can pull all those. And with, different tools and things, I can figure out what is their email address. And then they're part of a newsletter, an opt-in newsletter. They're following my company or they've opted in over here. And I've got a newsletter that goes out every month to 30,000 people. I invite them to webinars and events and build community. It's like an immediate pipeline surge. My team every year leads the world in pipeline and qualified pipeline coverage. And it's not a coincidence. It's because we are just the land grab, the game is we're engaging aggressively, but it's a lot of it's passive education, it's opt in, opt out, and it's we take the time to really be at the pulse of what matters to customers. We're not tone deaf to what's going on with some of these organizations. They're being asked to do more with less. They're budget strapped, all of the things. There's uncertainty. How can we be a better partner and a collaborator amidst all the craziness and the noise? And that's what we lean into. It's not about products. It's not about solutions. And that's how you can scale to the masses right now. And again, you need maybe 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 people. It's like magic. That's how I run my solution plays. I get armed with different, very specific point solution plays that we can run. We may send that to a certain set of people. I always like to say, before you can feast, you've got to set the table. And that is how you can build an unbeatable foundation for success.
So once you start doing that, right? Because I could hear people going, well, but I don't have time to deal with people that are not my ICP or whatever. And I could see that, let's say you took 100 people within an organization. Certainly not all of those are decision makers or have the authority to buy what you're selling.
A lot of them are.
Some of them are, and some of them may be quote unquote influencers, or they may not be, but they could be referral sources to influencers, right?
Yep.
And I think what you said is all you're looking for is that one bite, if you will, from that. And that for somebody says, hey, that's interesting, Carson. I think I'm going to, introduce you to Joe, or I'm going to introduce you to so-and-so. And now you start kind of permeating and building, again, not building relationship within the organization, even though you may be 4 or 5 steps away from the buyer or the decision maker. You're starting to build that foundation within the organization.
You get 100 connection requests a week on LinkedIn. Use them. I send them to director and above at the organizations that my team supports. I literally had a meeting today with a client that I met on LinkedIn. My team has covered this customer for years. They had never met this person. Now, granted, this person was relatively newer, so that's not a fair assessment. But my point in saying it was, by getting in front of this person, and they actually shared with us, they're relatively new, so they're still going around and meeting other stakeholders within this massive organization. So guess what we did? We were able to arm this person with things about how we could be a great collaborator with technology and transformation as they're going around and meeting all these other stakeholders that we would want a better relationship with. So now, you're earning the right to influence. You never know which of these relationships that you invest in is going to pan out or pay off. The same could be said for the rest of your life. You never know what relationships you invest in are going to pay dividends, but you invest strategically And I mean, I have the benefit of time that I can tell you over the last 11 years, I've bet big on relationships. I'm not technically savvy, but I've exceeded every wildest dream of success with deals and revenue and awards as a result of this strategy. Thank you to LinkedIn. Thank you to betting big on relationships and being resourceful as opposed to talking about products and widgets.
How do you, knowing that you're going for a broad scope of people or a broad range of people within an organization, how do you go about tailoring your content and your message so that it's not so one size fits all that it's kind of generic? How do you do that in a way that has the highest probability of kind of catching, biting within that organization, at least with somebody?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm getting ready to send a mail today to 30,000 people. And so, you're not, I don't purport to be an expert on this stuff. I like to tinker and toy. And yes, I will sometimes run things that will go to very specific people at an organization. Like I mentioned, I sent an email yesterday to 92 people in one organization around one topic, and I picked specific titles. Today, I'm sending a newsletter to 30,000 people, and I'm, asking for, people to attend a webinar and things of that nature. The messaging, you want to be mindful of, like, again, staying away from your corporate jargon, but being really outcome focused. What is a problem or a challenge that you know that they're grappling with? I made the decision years ago that I was always going to keep my ear to the ground and listen for where can I solve problems and how can I solve them in ways that are game changing and then replicate that success. And that has worked for me a great deal. So, like, for instance, with this message that's going out to 30,000 people today, there are commonalities. They all work in a very specific industry. And so being able to very quickly, talk about things that the industry is struggling with and ways that we are helping. I always like to include customer stories in
Yeah, yeah.
newsletters, and things that are going to be very poignant and impactful and that will catch their attention. And don't focus on myself. Don't focus on my company. Focus on that recipient and what might be interesting or intriguing for them to take action. And last thing I'd say is, like, AI can do all of these things. I literally shared with you earlier on this session the exact prompt that I used to create that mail. Write a 3-sentence hook that will maximize the attention span of an executive based on problems that they are facing right now in this industry. Bam.
Yeah, I have found in the B2B world, right, where I'm operating in, and you are too, even though it's kind of nonprofit, it's still B2B, right?
Yeah.
Is people are really, really craving for what their peers are doing and learning what their peers are doing.
Yes.
More than anything, more than ever I've seen, they're craving, especially in the world of AI, I think, because I think they're like, well, is my peers, what are they doing with AI, or how are they using AI there? They get benefiting it from AI or whatever, but it could be anything from that matter. I think the more that you have the ability to, as a vendor, right? That's one of the benefits we have is we actually have information about their peers. We
Right.
have information outside of their company walls that they may not have or have the access to that. So let's leverage and share that, right? Without obviously breaking confidentiality or whatever, but let's leverage and share that because that's what I think people are really craving for
And
is
that's the value you can bring.
that's right. Right. And what are
Is
my
having
peers
that
doing?
perspective. Yes. I tell people all the time, like, look, you can buy these solutions and you can buy cloud literally anywhere. It's a commodity. The reason, the differentiating factor is you've got somebody like me that is going to aggressively be your advocate within this behemoth of an organization, help you navigate these resources. I'm going to be fighting to get them for you. And so the more communicative and transparent we are, and the more of an evangelist we are for our, the companies that we serve and support, the more resourceful we are. Like, the reason I won that deal that, I was just telling you started last year on LinkedIn, was because of the fact that we swarmed. It was an immediate, like, they were going to go with a competitor. We got them some funds. We brought in a technical architect. We did a session with them for envisioning. We got them into a special session, brought in some other people. Like, the best thing that I can ever do for a customer sometimes is, frankly, bring in smarter people and bring in money and resources and then just get the heck out of the way for the magic to happen. And I know that.
Yeah.
And so that's why we have to swarm with value now more than ever.
Swarm with value. I like that. That's a hashtag swarm with value. I think that's
I
a
love that.
new shirt. I wanted to touch on one more thing before we kind of start. I want to get into Sales Navigator and some of the other LinkedIn tools, but you had mentioned something about hiring, right? And hiring managers. And I'm going through hiring some people right now. And it's kind of a learning process for me because I'm finding much more focused on, can that person that I'm hiring deliver an outcome versus looking at their resume and their skill set and their experience. And I think hiring nowadays, people are becoming very selective
Yeah.
and looking at, really, can that person deliver what is actually needed in the organization, just rather than going in and having some skills and abilities, right? And I think that's a byproduct to a degree of AI and the AI mindset, because we start to get more outcome oriented. So I would suspect that if I'm out potentially looking or being wanting to be attractive to a hiring manager and all of that stuff, if I'm sharing outcomes and talking about outcomes, that's going to benefit not only my customer, but it's also going to benefit me as it relates to attracting potentially of a hiring manager or somebody who would potentially be, looking to hire.
At the corner of my desk, I have this old brag book that I used 15 years ago. And it's a tangible physical item, and it's got a bunch of awards that I won when I was in the call centers and years ago. And now all that stuff's digital. It's LinkedIn, right? It's your career walking deck. I have a career walking deck that I've shared on LinkedIn, and that it's funny. I had somebody reach out to me the other day, and they said, like, it's now considered like the gold standard at Microsoft. Like, everybody knows my walking deck, and I actually stole the theme from a mentor of mine years ago. But like, that's the thing. You've got to be able to articulate your unique experiences and skill sets. You've got to also de-risk the hiring manager's decision to put you in that role. You want to show that you're going to minimize ramp time.
Mm-hmm.
And what's amazing too, Tom, I was doing some interviews earlier, and in the what was it, in the week, and I literally took, the resumes and the job description and some notes that I had, and I plopped them all into Copilot and had it spit out questions to ask that were experience based, but also had it like stack rank based on certain fundamentals of what I was looking for. It's all in the prompts, right? And it gave me like some things to think about. It helped me in choosing the candidate. I had my gut, right? But it was just able to give me some database things of like, these are the things that I'm looking for. These are the experiences that I'm looking for. Blammo, here we go.
Yeah, can you translate to an outcome, or who has the highest probability of delivering the outcome?
That's it.
Because I mean, resumes very rarely talk about outcomes; they just
I don't
talk
even
about
look at them. I don't even look
experience
at
and
them.
skill. Yeah. So, all right. Well, anyway, we're not about modern hiring strategies, but I do think they
But
go arm in arm.
salespeople are thinking it. Like
Yeah.
modern selling, like, you've got to be thinking about your career in a way of like, what are we going to be doing 5, 10 years from now? What kind of jobs are my kids going to have, with the onslaught of AI and what it's doing and replacing and automating? Like, you've got to become invaluable in the marketplace. And the way that you're going to do that is experiences and relationships.
Well, and outcomes, right? So, no matter how good we get with AI, we're still going to have to make sales, right?
Yes,
AI is not going to make sales for us 100% independently without anybody behind that driving how we're using AI.
you're right.
So, and sales is probably the most measurable job in an organization, right? It's probably one of the most outcome focused pieces that are there. But now when you say, okay, I'm hiring you because I need you to generate $5 million out of this territory and generate this many sales or whatever, now as a sales individual or a professional or a manager, I can use AI to figure out, how do I actually accomplish that? And then what you just talked about, or we just talked about, is fundamentally behind all of that, I'm going to have to build a shit ton of relationships, right?
That's it.
To do that. So then how do I all make that happen to achieve that outcome? And I think that's where the difference is going to be, is the judgment. You see employees, right, judge, oh, they're a good person, or they work hard, or, they're good on the phone, or whatever. They have skills and they have experience, but they don't necessarily achieve the outcome. And I think that's changing a lot in how hiring and companies are going to operate, which I think is a good thing, right? I think it's going to be causing a lot more efficient.
think it's inevitable. I mean, even roles are changing. Like, I'm seeing some of these account executive type roles that I've seen and done for the last several years shifting, and what the purview, what the remit is. And I think we have to be open to that. We have to be agile. We can't, cling to what we did in years past per se, but we can absolutely parlay experiences and help our current selves see around corners better as a result of what we've done in years past. Like the biggest theme in my time in my career at AT&T when I was selling advertising or telecommunications was really building community and doing outreach and consistently prospecting. And even though my jobs since then have looked very, very different, that has always been at the heart. How can we build community? How can we get stories in front of people and find ways to better resonate? How do we what's the unique value prop that I have, or that my team has, or that my organization has? Like all those things still matter, but they're always going to be in flux too, because my value prop has changed. I've been at this company almost 12 years, and my
Yep.
value prop is much different today than it was 12 years ago. So we just have to be eyes wide open.
Hey, before we jump ahead, I forgot to mention earlier that this show is sponsored by Fist Bumps. And we'll get Brandon here back with us soon. But Fist Bump's doing an interesting thing, as you see on this thing here, is they're doing, they're basically have a model where they're bringing together groups of people into essentially a online, I don't know, mastermind, if you will, or rooms where they put all their buyers and put them together. And again, why? To build relationships, right? So, sort of, online, there's a word that they're using, which I'm not thinking about right now, but sort of, again, online groups of people and masterminds and things together, rooms where your buyers are listening. So the foundation of that obviously could be, I mean, I think with the LinkedIn piece and that is kind of a 1+1 = 3.
Roundtables.
Roundtables, thank you. Online
Yes,
roundtables. Yes, I knew I was just like completely drawing a blank.
it's all good. That's what you got me here for, Tom. I'm
Thank
not
you. My God, thanks for
yeah,
having my back. Otherwise, I was just going to be blathering like an idiot. Anyway, check out getfistbumps.com, and they're doing some pretty cool stuff there. So, switching gears, well, maybe not switching gears completely, but I want to talk about Sales Navigator, because I think that's one of the areas. I think when I talk to people about LinkedIn, it's probably one of the most confusing products for them, people to really understand. And I don't think that people really use it properly
yeah.
to get the value. So how should we be using Sales Navigator? How do we tie that into what we just talked about? How do we use this to kind of get us more at scale?
Sales Navigator is like the best digital signals in the world. I go in and I follow all my customer organizations or hot prospects. And what's cool is it's like its own cultivated LinkedIn feed. You can go in and you can actually see posts that you wouldn't see on your LinkedIn feed, but you will see on your Sales Nav feed because it was posted by an executive at a company you're following. You can actually change what you're looking at in the feed. You can just say, I just want to look at new executives that were named by this organization. And my gosh, like Tom, I've got so many stories of I saw there was a new executive. I reached out same day. I booked a meeting. I was in the office before the competition, and I got all the business. It's great digital signals that you can act on immediately. That's what I love about Sales Navigator. The fact that you can go out and when I signed my biggest deal, when I plotted that path, I went out and I said, okay, I want to pull every director, VP, CXO. Now I'm going to set up a repository of these folks. But I mean, you can go down and there's periods of ellipses on the side once you pull who you want to look at. Connect. Send my templatized, connection request format. send it out 500 times. I got 226 first degree connections from that activity. So like Sales Navigator is like a hub for being able to like geo target, look at specific titles, but also get digital signals that like tell you as a seller, like, wow, I got to act on this. This is a Glenn Gary lead and I need to move. Um, by
Sales
paying close
Navigator allow you to see, does a Sales Navigator allow you to see posts that your people are making from a different way, right? Rather than just looking at your feed
Yeah, I've
or
got a CEO that I follow for 10 years. He's a big cat CEO, and I see him every day on Sales Navigator, but I've never once seen one of his posts on LinkedIn because
interesting.
LinkedIn operates with an algorithm,
Right.
and Sales Navigator operates with what you feed it that you want to see.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to comment on that post, do you do that in Navigator or do you go over to regular LinkedIn?
You click on it, you can
Yeah.
do it right there. It interfaces directly with that post. You can open it in LinkedIn and they're interchangeable. Like a lot of times, one thing that I'll do, Tom, is I may be in LinkedIn. I'll go to a company page that I'm following or I want to crack into. I'll click it. There's a link or directly on the company page that says Open in Sales Navigator. You go over there, you can see all the decision makers. You can interface with it, follow people, follow the page, do a lot of things and slice and dice inside of Sales Nav that you can't do in LinkedIn.
And can they send alerts or anything? Are you allowed to set any sort of alerts or
Yeah,
whatever in LinkedIn to look for certain things or
you can
Navigator?
save a search. Like I have stuff that's set up within like the 400 customers that I serve and support. They're all in a organizational list, and I can get an alert anytime something specific happens. New executive, new potential lead joins. My lead posts something. You can set up all kinds of alerts and get emails every time something happens that you want to be notified of.
You know what it would be? Here's an enhancement request, and maybe they're working on it there at Microsoft is now let's say you have your list of companies there and you're following all the posts there. Is there an AI tool that could summarize and look for trends or look for things that are commonality, right? That we could then use to again add more value and add more relevance to the conversation? Or
There
is
is
there a
some
way to feed any of this into AI?
Yeah, there is absolutely some of that. There's some AI tools that are built into it that can, pull together some of those trends. There's summaries on some of the pages. And frankly, Tom, like a lot of times I'm using so many tools interchangeably. Like I've talked about some of these on the show before. I mentioned Octopus, but like I use Humantic AI. I was on an executive call earlier today and I had their Humantic AI profile pulled up and I exported a PDF of that file. I threw it into Copilot. I basically said, based on this person's Humantic AI profile, buying style, disc personality profile, and this company website, give me some things that I should be bringing up as a seller at Microsoft. Done
Yeah.
right there. And there were 5 things that popped up on the screen. Number 3 was the golden goose, and you're off to the races. It's amazing just how effective it can make you. And sure, I could have done all this stuff myself. I could have done all the research. I could have thought of some of these things by myself as just a normal human. But this stuff just makes you so much more effective. It gives you a higher probability of success, and it feeds these insights directly to you. That's what I love about it.
So is there a co-pilot capability within? It's probably, in the higher version of Navigator that you can kind of use the co-pilot to summarize and potentially look across your different sort of, search or companies that you're following.
Sales Nav has some of it,
Okay.
but furthermore, like even being able to like because my Sales Nav is hooked up to my Dynamics, my CRM, and to be able to and my Outlook. And so in essence, all of these things are talking to each other. But worst comes to worst, I can take some of these things and just plop them into my own
Right.
Copilot
Right.
and
Right.
surface up additional insights. So yes to all the above. Like AI is baked into all the tools. And on top of that, I can use my own AI tools and throw stuff in when in doubt. I throw in BI dashboards. I throw in, different things. Just have it glean insights for me. Company reports. It's amazing, like the capabilities. It just makes you brilliant in a matter of seconds.
So here's what I'm hearing is the playbook, and tell me where I've got it wrong. Right. I have a list of companies in my territory, my company, my account-based marketing list, whatever. Right. All right. Good. I start there. I go in and I, first of all, in the Sales Navigator, I'm following all of those. I'm putting them in a list, like you said, so I can have visibility and signals on what's going on across all of those companies. Number one. Number two, I can use Navigator then to identify, again, like we talked about earlier, who is some of the people we should be building relationships with within those companies. And then using that to help facilitate the list of people now that I'm going to start connecting with, building relationships, reaching out to, all of those types of things. Now, and I can now use that data to help me come up with a content strategy or a curated approach to messaging and so forth, of which then I build my content and the things on LinkedIn. And now I think about the flywheel that starts to be created there by, and I'm looking for signals and driving and making decisions and building now this sort of ecosystem relationship across not only my accounts, but the individuals within those accounts, providing value. And I don't know how you could not have opportunities pop to the surface. It's almost impossible for it not to bloom. Is that basically the playbook?
I think you said it perfectly, Tom. I mean, think about it this way. Where do people get stuck? Where do sellers get stuck? Prospecting is hard. It's hard to get in touch with people. It's hard to get a meeting. Then discovery. Like, how do you have a really good discovery meeting without showing up and throwing up a bunch of awesome things about your product and yourself and your company? That's where people screw up. Now, thanks to AI and LinkedIn and Sales Navigator, I mean, it's on steroids. It
Yeah.
is. It's impossible for me to not get meetings. I get meetings left and right. I send
Yeah.
out one email and I get, I've gotten 80 meetings from one email before that AI helped me craft, and my Sales Navigator contacts helped me export. Then discovery. Now discovery is simple. I plop in what I need to do, who the person is, plop in their LinkedIn profile into Copilot or Chat GPT, and now I know exactly what to ask this person. I plop in things about my own company. I can plop in my own company website. I can plop in specific products that I need or want to sell, and how can I bring them up in an outcome focused kind of way. They can tell me what problems my customer's trying to solve. Now that discovery meeting becomes a consultative meetings instead of just discovery, and I've got a blueprint. Now, sales fundamentals still matter, but the problem is we spent so much time as sellers, like trying to nail step 1 and 2, or like, let's just get to the demo. If we can master step 1 and 2, which we now can, thanks to LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, and AI, it becomes so much easier to get to that blueprint where it's like we build out a strategic roadmap with our customers. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, man. It is. It is so easy now. And that's why somebody like me, who's been basing my sales philosophy on probability and odds for the last 10 years, is giddy as a schoolboy, because it is too easy right now. I'm in the Matrix. I feel like Neo in the Matrix. I can dodge bullets. Come with me if you want to sell.
I was at a executive conference last week in Park City, and there was a lot of conversation about sales and how to do B2B. It was all for B2B SaaS companies and sales. And one of the biggest complaints that people had, is they called it the demo chasm, right? Is they would do a demo and then they never hear again from the customer again, right? To your point, they rush into a demo. That was their big thing. And then they wonder why there's not ongoing conversation. And I've been thinking a lot about that as we've been talking today, is if the foundation is there by the time you get to the demo is just a natural progression in the conversation. It's not the end all be all event that we think is going to springboard us to a proposal or to a deal, right? It's just part of the conversation that I'm building along the way. And again, that matches more of the buyer journey. The buyer journey is going down their buyer journey of what they're doing, not necessarily down the seller journey of discovery, demo, proposal, and all the things that we kind of run into as it relates to that. So not only is it a much more effective way, it aligns more to the buyer, the way the buyer wants to buy.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other final thoughts on LinkedIn before we wrap up today? I think we've really you've given me a lot to think about. I I've used Sales Navigator, but I can tell I'm not using it well enough. And um, I'm probably going to reach out to you for more questions.
No, please do. Like, look, I'm a big believer in I'm a big believer in the platform because of what it's enabled me to do from a career and from a sales perspective. It is a I realized a long time ago that the people that I need and want to connect with are on LinkedIn. And, I always like to say you can control three things. You can control the quality of your outreach, the quantity of your outreach, and the consistency by which you engage over time. And so I try to control those things the best I can. And in the way of, you know, asking provocative questions when I'm posting, sharing experiences that I have, sharing customer stories. And, you can go out and create these connections, but you can also put out content that is going to help you stay top of mind with these folks. And then furthermore, you can message people directly and get meetings based on things that matter to them, based on what they're talking about, based on what they're sharing. I've shared on this show about how I got a CEO meeting because I commented on every post that he made for 6 months. Now, granted, that looks a little bit different now. That happened 2 years ago. That looks different now because there's so many AI comments and so much inauthenticity, but it doesn't stop. Like, if you're agile and you keep your eyes wide open and you listen to the signals that this stuff is telling you, like your customers are telling you what they care about. You can go out and follow and ring the bell on an executive, ring the bell on a company page, and you can react and respond when you're getting these signals, and you can tell exactly what these folks care about, what matters to them. You can celebrate their wins, and you can share your stories that are relevant. I can't say enough positive things about how LinkedIn and Sales Navigator not only have helped me be successful for the last 15 years, but are still the way, and it's still the future.
So LinkedIn is not dead. AI has not killed LinkedIn. That's what we're hearing.
Goodness, no. There's always going to be noise, and there's always going to be garbage everywhere. And but I think that's the key element. You've got to find your way of standing out amidst the noise and differentiate, whether it's video messaging or whether it's how you're getting the exact right story and not pitch slapping amidst all the craziness and the noise. There's so many things that you can be doing right now to go against the grain.
All right. Well, I think we've set the stage really well for Daniel Disney next week and talking about some LinkedIn tactics. I think it's interesting how much things have changed in 150 episodes in 3 years, and what was modern then is no longer modern now. So
true.
Good stuff.
Are we going to do 150 more?
I think we are. Yeah, that's what we've been told. Yeah, that's what our producer Floor told us today. We're just going to be a new and improved 150. I think after that.
She's the best, I hear.
Yeah, she is the best. She's also the queen, I understand as well.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah, we'll have to have her on as a guest.
I would love that. I think she would really take us in a radical new direction.
That's right. Well, that's going to be part of our new and improved.
The reboot. Yeah, everybody's rebooting, so we got to figure out
every 50 episodes we reboot, whether we need it or not. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Carson, as always, great conversation. We'll get Brandon back here soon. And you want to wrap us up?
Am I supposed to say something? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. And